done in the spring. Cab drivers lined the streets outside the State House today and crammed a legislative hearing to protest ride-sharing companies like Uber and Lyft. The drivers called on lawmakers to require the companies to follow regs similar to what they face. On Wall Street, the Dow was down 95 points. I'm Joe Cutter. Get breaking news and weather alerts on your cell phone. Text news to 89,000. This is the Town Square News Network.
As we dive into the evening hours, our wintry mix will transition to almost all snow and sleet across New Jersey, with low temperatures diving into the 20s tonight. We'll finally taper off from this winter storm system early tomorrow morning with some snowers along the coast, and then it'll become mostly cloudy and breezy with highs in the mid to upper 30s. Wednesday, partly sunny with highs scaling back to the lower to mid 30s, and then Thursday will come our next chance of snow. Looks light at this point, mostly cloudy on Thursday with highs in the 30s. I'm meteorologist Dan Zarrow.
It's a new year. How about a new you? If you're one of the millions of people suffering from hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, anxiety, depression, joint pain, headaches, or brain fog, then you won't want to miss Jersey Shore Pharmacy's upcoming seminar featuring Dr. Roberta Foss-Morgan. Dr. Foss-Morgan is an expert on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which is the natural way for lasting relief from the problems plaguing many adults. Age and stress are key reasons for loss of many important hormones, vitamins, and minerals in both men and women, which can also lead to weight gain, loss of sex drive, and loss of muscle mass. Dr. Foss-Morgan will answer your questions and discuss what you can do to reverse these conditions during this informative seminar, Saturday, February 28th at 10 a.m. at the Seaview Hotel and Golf Resort, 401 South New York Road in Galloway. Tickets are just $10, which includes breakfast. The last program sold out, so don't wait. Register now at jspharmacy.com or on Facebook at Jersey Shore Pharmacy. That's jspharmacy.com or on Facebook at Jersey Shore Pharmacy.
WPG Talk Radio 1450 presents Ask the Congressman, brought to you by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. Compounding medication solutions from juniors to seniors to pets. It's your opportunity to talk directly to Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Call 407-1450. Now, with Congressman Frank LoBiondo, here's Harry Hurley.
Good evening and welcome to Ask the Congressman. This is our second installment of what is a monthly program here on WPG Talk Radio 1450, part of Town Square, Atlantic City. Let me just give you a couple of quick background items. Of course, our market president, Michael Rubel, sends his regards. Executive Program Director Chris Coleman, ditto. And our executive producer, he just does a fabulous job in directing Ask the Congressman. Kyle McCann is here with us tonight. Thanks to our chief engineer, Todd McNally, of course. You can tweet your questions to Congressman LoBiondo right now. We have a lot of email. We have a lot of tweets. We have a lot of WPG1450.com social media questions. We're going to pose as many of them as we can because this is your program in the town square to have access to your congressman, Congressman Frank LoBiondo. We're on WPG Talk Radio 1450. We're streaming live audio and video on WPG1450.com. Our sister station, WOBM-AM, out of Toms River, part of Town Square Media, New Jersey, carrying tonight's program on our live YouTube feed on their website, WOBMAM.com. Without further ado, and phone lines will open in just a little bit. Let us just get a few questions out. Congressman Frank LoBiondo, it is your program. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Great to be with you again.
Great to be with you, sir. This has been obviously just a gruesome season by ISIS, particularly to the Jordanian pilot. Many of our viewers, many of our listeners have either seen the video, heard about it. It is absolutely unbelievable the way that ISIS is convicting folks right now. Do you think we've reached a new level of engagement by Arab nations against ISIS? Because, I mean, look at all these efforts that Jordan has been doing since their pilot was executed.
Well, we have a new level of commitment from Jordan, but your question was Arab nations.
Fair enough.
And at this point, the answer is no. This is barbaric, horrendous. And what we're seeing, and we may have talked about this last time, there's almost a terrorist Olympics going on, as I'm phrasing it, to try to give people an idea of the competition between these groups. So Al-Qaeda had it all to themselves for a long time. Then we had Boko Haram, and then we've got Al-Shabaab, and then we've got this group Khorasan that nobody ever heard of. And then all of a sudden, the JV, according to the president, ISIS, ISIL, same group, comes on the scene, they seem to get top billing. They've got the revenue, they've got the finance, they've got the recruitment going. Everything is going their way. What happens? Al-Qaeda pulls off this terrorist operation in Paris. Horrific. They get the attention, they create the terror, the killing that they wanted. All of a sudden now Al-Qaeda from Yemen, they're the top ones. So ISIL doesn't like this. So beheadings weren't gruesome enough. Beheadings were too routine. And they come up with this latest scenario. And I will tell you, and we can get into it, I met with the King of Jordan last week with a small group. And I've met with him on 6 or 8 previous occasions, a couple in Jordan, the others in our Intel committee in Washington. And it was just amazing what he had to say.
Follow up to that, I think a lot of people agree with this. I'll go on record as saying that I agree with it. A lot of folks, a lot of nations that watch what America is and isn't doing believe that we're not doing enough. I mean, for example, look how Jordan has extended into this fight now that they see directly how this has hit them at home. Should we be stepping up more as a nation? And with all these committees, these vital committees, Congressman, that you serve on, wide spectrum of observation that you possess, should we be stepping up more to help Jordan?
First of all, to help ourselves. Secondly, to help Jordan and to help the rest of the world. And it doesn't matter whether you're Arab or Muslim or Western. They're coming after you. They're going to perpetrate their barbarism on you. But to give the real answer, you've got to go back a little bit. So let's go back 3 years, 4 years. The House Intelligence Committee, the Senate Intelligence Committee, Republicans and Democrats, there was no daylight, were calling on the administration to declare, to do something on ISIS. At that point, ISIL wasn't a term, it was ISIS. We saw it coming. The civil war had started in Syria. There was a void that was created, and ISIS took advantage of the void, and we knew what their end game was. We begged them. Republicans and Democrats begged them. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No acknowledgement. Don't worry about it. To even rather recently, about a year ago, I guess, when the president dubs them the JV. So we've gotten it wrong. The president's had some very bad advice on this. He either has not paid attention or the people advising him are so far out to lunch they can't even see.
Congressman, didn't we really know they weren't the JV well before the president said they were the JV?
We absolutely did. Without
Was that
hesitation.
Political in nature that he was so wrong, or was he just absolutely that ill-informed? Either way, it's scary.
It is very scary. Either way, I would have to think that he must have been ill-informed, because if he had seen what some of us had seen, he could never have made that statement. Never have made that statement. And that's carried on with almost every one of these groups. Boko Haram, Nigeria. We saw this coming. We begged them. We begged Hillary Clinton, please declare them a terrorist organization. No, it's civil unrest. It's a problem that's just in that country, and we really don't have to worry about it. They were a little monster in a corner that we could have easily taken care of a couple of years ago. They've grown into the type of monster now that not even their army will deal with because of the atrocities that they perpetrate on the army. They leave a couple people alive to go back and talk about it. Al-Shabaab, the same thing. Khorasan, the same thing. And all of this, let it be, let it be, let it be, it'll take care of itself, is coming back to bite us in ways that are very, very difficult to deal with.
We lost significant gains in Iraq, as you and I have talked about on Hurley in the Morning many times in the past. Are we in the process right now of losing gains in Afghanistan?
I would say without a doubt we are, unless the president changes direction. He's getting a lot of advice to change direction from some very important, influential Democrats as well as Republicans who are very solid people who understand these problems. And the president, just like Gitmo, president's hell-bent on keeping a campaign promise. I'm going to close it. Now, the head of ISIL, Baghdadi, was in U.S. custody. He was not at Gitmo. He was in Camp Bucca, I believe it was. And he was inadvertently released. Can you take that one? Can you sort of believe that one? Inadvertently released. And what's he doing now? And what's he conducting now? And we get into just a whole host of other things they're getting wrong because the president got in his head he was going to say something, so he was going to do something that he said and promised. And instead of, I think, looking at the evidence don't look at it from Republicans, look at it from some key Democrats, Norm Panetta Leon Panetta and people like that. And you know what? We've got to redo this game plan for the sake of America, for the sake of the world. He won't do it, and it's leading us into bigger and bigger trouble.
You're listening to United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo. This is our monthly program, Ask the Congressman. It's your opportunity to pose your questions. We have a lot of email questions. We're going to get to them in just a moment. If you'd like to give us a call, we'll put you right on air with the Congressman. 609-407-1450. Phone lines are open for the remainder of this hour and a couple of minutes into the next hour. The Congressman's going to give us about 2-3 minutes of overtime. This program is brought to us by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. I know Mark Taylor, RPH, very, very well. He's a great, great guy. He has a wonderful team. They're at the corner of Ocean Heights and Zion Road in Egg Harbor Township, from juniors to seniors to pets. From a compounding standpoint, they do it all. That's compounding excellence. Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. I gave a question and some follow-up. Now let's go to our listeners. LJ in Vineland gets into Congressman LoBiondo. Mr. LoBiondo, as you know, Representative Chaffetz has reintroduced RAWA, R-A-W-A acronym, which was also introduced during the lame duck session last year. RAWA would effectively ban and shut down regulated internet gambling operations already enacted in states such as Nevada, Delaware, and New Jersey. This bill is heavily backed by the billionaire casino mogul Sheldon Adelson, who strongly opposes internet gambling. Historically, states were the ones who decided whether or not this activity was allowed within their borders. Regulating internet gambling has proven to be successful within those states that allow it. What is your position on the subject, and do you support RAWA?
Absolutely not. This first surfaced probably about 1.5 years ago, conceptually at that point. And Sheldon Adelson is very, very successful. The Venetian in Las Vegas is an incredible property. He's moved into the Chinese market, done incredibly well. But he is used to having things his way on the issues completely. And for those states like New Jersey and Nevada and a couple of others that made the move, did due diligence, the federal government had a chance to do this on a national level so that everybody would have sort of the same rules. It was just kind of too sticky. There were too many dogs and cats running around on this issue. New Jersey went forward. It hasn't produced exactly what we thought it would in New Jersey, but it's a valuable tool. What Sheldon Adelson would do would be to undo everything we've done, everything Nevada has done, and the other states, and just make it illegal across the board. That's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. There was a serious issue about this coming up in lame duck. There was an anticipation, there was a rumor, there was all these things swelling around that Adelson was going to use his, whatever you want to call it, influence to have this bill put up in lame duck and just try to let it roll. We were able to stop that. I don't know how to predict how many people. I don't think he has a large co-sponsor list on this, but if you're from a state that's already done this, and those members, we don't want to hear anything about it. So it's on our radar screen. Not many people are thinking about it. I thank the listener for the question because it's an emergency.
From Senator Bill Bradley to Senator Orrin Hatch to other members of Congress, it seems like, Congressman LoBiondo, for years there has been this predisposed bias against gaming in general at the congressional levels. Is that true?
It is true. There was trying to recall his name. There was a former congressman from New York State, Syracuse area, John, I'll think of the last name in a minute. He teamed together with a Republican congressman from Virginia, Frank Wolf. Pure anti-gaming, one a Democrat, one a Republican, wanted to see the federal government outlawed. The federal government, of course, wasn't going to outlaw it. So what they tried to do was a very strong initiative 20 years ago, 18 years ago, to have the federal government be the ones to regulate it and tax it. So a state like New Jersey, state like Nevada, and we'll talk about us, we did so well with the Casino Control Commission, with the Division of Gaming Enforcement. They wanted to negate all that. They wanted to create a federal bureaucracy that would do the job that the individual states were doing. And in addition, there was a formal proposal that Bill Clinton actually made. I think it was like a 5% tax on gaming. There was a gaming commission that was passed. That was designed to send this commission around the country to gaming jurisdictions to be able to point to how bad they were for the areas. Atlantic City was the first stop on that commission tour. And when they left Atlantic City, everybody did such a fabulous job. Of course, in those days, Atlantic City was in a little bit different shape than it is today. We're talking about 1996 in that time frame. We were able to fight off all of those assaults to regulate it, to tax it, to do all these things to it. But there are a group of members, Republicans and Democrats, who just think that gaming is wrong and would do anything to get rid of it if they could.
16 minutes past the hour. Phone lines are open, and you're never shy. This is your opportunity to pose your questions live to Congressman Frank LoBiondo. We have a lot of email questions, and every other question, at the minimum, we're going to go to your questions here on Congressman LoBiondo's monthly program, Ask the Congressman. 609-407-1450. Phone lines are open right now. Here is something I've been so excited to pose this question to you for several weeks now, because most of our listeners don't even know that this has happened. You met with Jordan's King Abdullah II last week as part of the Armed Services Committee, just as the video from ISIS was being released. What was that like? What were his words?
Well, again, beyond amazing, incredible. And I have had the good fortune, the honor to meet with the king on a number of occasions. The first couple of meetings were through House Intelligence in the secure SCIF, as it's called, where we had a chance to talk about the issues affecting the Middle East, as it referred to, from terrorist position and the classified information. The king was on a routine visit to Washington to further the discussion and the dialogue about what could be done, what the nature of the problem that we're facing is from his perspective, because he's in the neighborhood. And of course, the video was released. The king's plans changed. The day we were supposed to spend in the Intelligence Committee was wiped off. He flew back to Jordan. But the chair of the House Armed Services Committee was hastily able to get a commitment while the king was still at the Capitol area, and a small group of us met with him. It was beyond amazing. The king went on to say that he would spare nothing. There would be no forgiveness. He said, we, America and the West, really don't understand this mentality, this barbarism. He thinks he does. And he said that if it takes them 50 years, they will hunt down everybody who was involved with this. His goal is that they don't go to sleep on a single night and have a good night's sleep. He said he will step this thing up to the maximum with his capabilities. And let me tell you, they're a small country, but they are very capable.
They did the 50 bombing.
They are U.S. trained.
Hits just, last week.
He said that the only thing that would stop him is if he were to run out of fuel or bombs.
But isn't that where we come in?
And that's where we come in. And that's where then he went on to express enormous frustration that the bureaucracy of the State Department and the Department of Defense would look at a request that on its surface is pretty simple. He's not asking us to put U.S. troops. He's not asking us to put U.S. advisors. He's not asking us to put our, U.S. forces. He's saying, I will do all this. I will take the lead, and I won't take my foot off the gas pedal. But I'm going to run out of bombs, and I'm going to run out of fuel. Why can't you expedite this? To give you an example, in the Yom Kippur War, and I guess that was in the 60s, if I'm remembering correctly, the request from Israel came in to the United States. Within 48 hours, there were transport planes on the ground in Israel helping them with their request for armaments and ammunition and the fuel and everything else.
That's how we treat allies.
That's how you treat allies.
Let me ask you this, and I'm very, very careful. I don't want to throw out incendiary language. I'm from the LoBiondo school of understanding when you're at war. I want to support my president. But I have to say, just the side-by-side specter of King Abdullah after a Jordanian pilot was burned to death in horrific, gruesome fashion by the terrorist enemy, ISIS. And when we had an American beheaded, you have King Abdullah II in his military uniform. He's ready to go. Our president, literally 10 minutes after an American was beheaded, he's on the golf course. I just think there is a disconnect here.
Well, there is a serious disconnect, and I think the president is starting to see that and feel it, and hopefully it comes around much more quickly for his acknowledgement and recognition of the challenge that we have here, of the enemy that we're facing. I don't know, General McGlynn and a whole string of generals have been testifying, and I can't remember which one, but said something to the effect, and it really struck me, that you can't win a war against somebody you haven't declared war on. So the president has not asked for an authorization of force. And the argument has been that, well, the president is just not sure, wants to get the language straight, that unlike in the past where there was a geographic nation to declare war on, that we don't have this time. Well, if you look at ISIL, take your choice, they have somewhere between 30 and 50,000 soldiers. They hold territory in Syria, Iraq. They are waging war from their point of view. They are attempting to take over oil fields. They are killing people in brutal fashion. Any place else, that would be called an army. Any place else, that would be called a war. And why the president would not come to us and say, I want to declare war on ISIS. Now, that would settle if they're in Syria. That would settle if they're in Iraq. What about if they go into Jordan? They're not that far from Jordan. What about if they venture into Jordan? Do we have an authorization of force that prohibits us from helping a key ally like Jordan with going after these people wherever they are? And the countries there want our leadership. Saudi Arabia, they lost their king. We don't know a lot about the new king. But the other countries there are craving U.S. leadership, and the president just doesn't get it.
You're listening to United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Time for your call, 609-407-1450. John is in Cape May in Ocean City in District 2. John, you're on the air with your congressman. Good evening. Your question.
Yes. As far as radical Islam, they're never going to change. They'll always be the way they are, and you really can't reason with them. But back to how Mr. Obama said in 2009 or whatever, that a $9 trillion debt, or 2008 rather, that a $9 trillion debt was obscene, unpatriotic, and irresponsible. How about now that we're $18 trillion in debt, and we reach $20 trillion in debt, the compound interest alone will make it impossible to ever pay back. And now Mr. Kennedy had signed Executive Order 1111, which was issuing out silver certificates, and that was rescinded 5 months after he died, was murdered. And that was compatible with the gold standard. And also, it was in 1999 that the Democrat Bill Clinton and Republican Phil Gramm rescinded the Glass-Steagall, which was a law enacted in 1933 to stop an economic collapse like the 1929 economic surprise of the Great Depression ever happening again.
John, do me a favor. Turn it into a question for the congressman.
Okay. How can we get those things back on the board again?
Well, they are pretty big issues. And the way any really big issue gets back on the board again is that whoever the president is takes the leadership initiative and says, this is what we're going to do. And the way the president is going around talking about some of the items that he discussed in his budget, if he were to take some of these big ticket items that really could make a difference for the country and be promoting them and get behind them, and he'd have a lot of Republican support, we could get some things done. As long as the president remains adamantly opposed, even if you had the House and the Senate decide that they could get together and put something on his desk, he will veto it. So,
right. So it has to be nonpartisan. I got you.
It's got to. There are enough of these things that you're talking about that are good for the country, are the right thing to do, that would have bipartisan support. But unless the president were to take the initiative and start making these speeches across the country, like he's so good at doing, he's really good at this. When he believes in something,
he goes out the next day.
He goes out the next day, and he's got people shaking their head, watching TV, saying, "Yeah, you know, I understand that, I get it," and could turn that into something really positive if he chose to.
Yeah, he's a good liar. I know that. Thank you.
John, thanks for a great probative question. That was John in Ocean City. We're going to take a brief time out. We're going to be right back. It is Ask the Congressman, your opportunity to pose your question to Congressman Frank LoBiondo of the 2nd Legislative District. We have a lot of ground to still cover. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Congressman's new committee assignments. Some of them have been committees he's been on for a number of years. He has been, I believe it's the culmination of this portion of his public service to rise to the level that he has with his most recent committee assignments. We're going to ask him, what are they and what do they mean? What do they mean to him? What do they mean to the district? What do they mean to the country? It's Ask the Congressman on WPG. Talk Radio 1450. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Stay with us.
WPG1450.com is South Jersey's 24-hour news source. When you need to know what's happening in South Jersey, around the Garden State, or across the country, visit WPG1450.com. The biggest news stories, your 5-day forecast, and more on your desktop or optimized for your tablet or cell phone. It's news when you need it at your fingertips from WPG Talk Radio 1450 and WPG1450.com.
It's a new year. How about a new you? If you're one of the millions of people suffering from hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, anxiety, depression, joint pain, headaches, or brain fog, then you won't want to miss Jersey Shore Pharmacy's upcoming seminar featuring Dr. Roberta Foss-Morgan. Dr. Foss-Morgan is an expert on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which is the natural way for lasting relief from the problems plaguing many adults. Age and stress are key reasons for loss of many important hormones, vitamins, and minerals in both men and women, which can also lead to weight gain, loss of sex drive, and loss of muscle mass. Dr. Foss-Morgan will answer your questions and discuss what you can do to reverse these conditions during this informative seminar, Saturday, February 28th at 10 a.m. at the Seaview Hotel and Golf Resort, 401 South New York Road in Galloway. Tickets are just $10, which includes breakfast. The last program sold out, so don't wait. Register now at jspharmacy.com or on Facebook at Jersey Shore Pharmacy. That's jspharmacy.com or on Facebook at Jersey Shore Pharmacy.
WPG Talk Radio 1450 presents Ask the Congressman, brought to you by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. Compounding medication solutions from juniors to seniors to pets. It's your opportunity to talk directly to Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Call 407-1450. Now, with Congressman Frank LoBiondo, here's Harry Hurley.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to Ask the Congressman. As the kind announcer just said, your phone lines are open right now at 609-407-1450, and we are brought to you by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. Mark Taylor and his great team at the corner of Ocean Heights and Zion Road in Egg Harbor Township. They're doing amazing work in compounding. That's everyone from juniors to seniors to pets. That's compounding excellence. Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy, Mark Taylor and his wonderful team. I want to talk about your committee assignments. Let me follow up on something before that. Major Nadal Malik Hassan, then a U.S. Army Ranger, I guess he still is technically still one now even, was responsible for a mass murder at Fort Hood. This is incredible, but it dates all the way back to November 5th, 2009. As a program, Hurley in the Morning, we have railed against this. As you know, Congressman, I brought it up to you many times in the past 5 years. This has been amazing that military folks, their families. They've been denied benefits that they richly deserve. They've been denied all of the things that if this had been properly labeled, the terrorist attack that it is, that would have immediately gone into effect for these families. To me, it's just completely unacceptable, unforgivable. And I said the November 4th election was going to have consequences. Look what's already happened.
It has. And it's just a shame for the families, for the wounded, for the surviving families, that it took till now for them to get their Purple Hearts, to be eligible for all the benefits that heroes get. And I heard an interview with one of the heroes who survived, and it was very telling. This was an individual who was wounded 7 times, 7 gunshot wound. And he said, very simply, I wish the president would talk to me and the other people who were wounded, and we would give him a point of view that he's not getting. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier. The president is insulated. I know that he can't be aware of everything, but they've got such a firewall built around him with people who are just so far away from our thinking on why is it you're wounded? The workplace violence, please. The guy's a terrorist.
He had to know. He had to know. It's beautiful to say.
Well, Harry,
he had to know. He did know. He chose this.
Harry, he's got the parents of Bergdahl in the Rose Garden.
Yes. And
the mom of one of the soldiers who went looking for Bergdahl, who lost his life looking for Bergdahl. Not even a phone call. Not even a phone call.
When are we going to get that Bergdahl report, by the way?
Well, I'm afraid that the delay is going to upset a lot of people. I don't know what it's going to say, but I don't know how it could say. I don't know how they can't.
You don't know what it's going to say, and if you knew, you couldn't say. I think you may even know, but you couldn't say anyhow, even if you did know. But come on, it has to say he deserted.
Yeah, and I don't. And this is military court. That is, you can't appeal anything. The decision, when it's made, is unappealable from what I understand.
Incidentally, this is how outrageous, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand this. This is how outrageous this whole Nidal Hasan thing has been. While the president and even the Department of Defense, but I know they were following his direction. And that's why these elections matter so very much, because there's no doubt in my mind, the only reason this changed 5 years later is because November 4th, 2014 happened and the American people spoke, and there was no denying this. Congress was going to pass things. This was going to happen, so they did the smart thing. They went and they changed it before Congress had to take action. Anyway, it had to happen. I'm just glad it happened. But this is how insidious this is, Congressman, and I know you know this. I want your listeners and viewers to know this. At the same time that the President of the United States called this a workplace incident, we were trying him in that military court as a terrorist.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah,
that's outrageous.
It is outrageous, and it's even more outrageous because it's not a one and out. It's repeated. So we have a Marine that's left to rot in Mexico for how long? Under what kind of conditions? With
PTSD.
And the Secretary of State doesn't even raise the issue. The President doesn't even raise the issue. Congressman Duncan Hunter, Marine combat commander from the War on Terrorism, was the one who took the lead on this. But you've got the Bergdahl situation, you've got the Hassan situation, you've got the Marine situation, you've got all these situations where American heroes, people who are putting their lives on the line for the rest of us, don't even get a basic acknowledgement. They or their families from the president. It's very difficult for me to understand. It's very difficult for me to accept. I don't accept it, but it's just very difficult.
So excited about this program. We at Town Square Media, it's so relevant. It's so important. And Congressman, we thank you for this monthly focus.
Sure.
The listeners love it. The phone calls, the email. We're not even going to be able to get to all of it. Let's go to your next caller, though, Ed in Northfield. And we'll get to your assignments in just a little bit. Ed, you're in Northfield. Your question for the Congressman. Good evening.
How you doing, Congressman?
Good morning. Excuse me. Good evening.
Make a quick comment about this new drunken driving bill that's sitting on the governor's desk. I hope that he's not going to sign it, because I look at that bill as though it's a slap in the face. There's many people out there that are listening right now that lost people to drunk drivers, and I think that bill, from what I've heard about it, it's for first-time drunk drivers, but it's no good. It's almost like saying it's like a slap on the wrist. I lost my niece to a drunk driver, and it hasn't even been a year yet. I also had a friend of mine that got killed to a drunk driver right in Summers Point. I think that bill should be just crinkled up and thrown in the trash. It's no good. It's almost like telling you you're going to lose your license for a small amount of time. I say leave it the way it is. How do you feel about it?
Ed, thanks for the question. Let me just jump in real quick. The Congressman will answer your question, of course. We talked about this at length this morning on Hurley in the Morning, and I just want to cast the net out there about what this is. It is for first-time offenders. The first-time offender could receive up to 10 days in jail and have the opportunity to have an interlock device. The interlock device would be because that individual would have the opportunity to still be able to drive to work, to make a living, and also to do whatever type of training it would be required, training, retraining, counseling for substance abuse and things like that. That's the concept behind it. A lot of people, Congressman, in all fairness, it's a state issue and not a federal issue, but you don't dodge. A lot of people are upset with this. They think that this has reduced the severity of the issue of driving while drunk.
Well, it sounds that way. I want to apologize to the caller and the listeners. I'm sort of just hearing about this. And from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like a good direction to me. My normal process, if I were in the state legislature, would be to talk to a lot of people. I would have fully read and understood it, and I would talk to relevant groups that work so hard on this issue to make such progress. There's such tragedy. So many lives have been disrupted. So many lives have been snuffed out. So many families that aren't going to have, their loved ones. That this is very difficult. So, and if you are in fact rolling things back, on the surface, that gives me a problem.
We did an interview this morning with Assemblyman Chris Brown on this, and I had done my homework. I figured somebody would bring it up, and they did. And I think at first blush, almost everybody is opposed to it and thinks it's a horrible thing. Chris Brown has really studied the issue. He supports the legislation, which is that there are a few people, you, Chris Brown, there are a handful of people, wow, when they're persuaded by something, that causes me to want to look into it a little bit further, because I can assure you, had I not read the bill, had I not spoken to several members of the legislature, I'd be automatically saying, whoa, why would you want to do this? I'll give you another shocker. This just in. Bill Elliott has gone on public record in support of this bill.
Wow.
Do you need to hear any more?
Oh, well.
As soon as I heard that, okay.
Well, that's huge.
Changes a lot, doesn't it?
Well, I would want to know, they were the two people I was thinking of on an issue like this. I would go to Bill Elliott and I would go to Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Yeah.
They are the people who have put sort of the most passion and the most time into this, and they take the politics out of it because they're interested in people and solving the issue. But I apologize for not being better versed on it.
It's just really coming out, so you're not really behind it at all. I mean, you're up voting and doing different things. That's why I wanted to throw out just a little bit of background on it. And Ed, I meant to say this while you were on the phone, our deepest condolences for your supreme loss, and believe me, I am not trying to mitigate that loss somehow makes this legislation wash with you. I understand you should be opposed to this, all the days of your life, because it's very hard to get past something like that when you hear that something's being modified and you don't quite understand it. But I would encourage listeners and viewers, look at the bill, find out what it is and what it isn't. And when you see some of the people that are in support of it, it's counterintuitive at first blush, but there's a lot more to this than you know. Let's go to Ann in Brigantine. And welcome to Ask the Congressman. You're on the air. Your question.
Two quick questions, please. Number one, the President's 2016 budget levels off funding for Washington, D.C. Opportunity Scholarships for poor students, and no future funds will be provided. Will you and the other Republicans extend this effective program? And two, the Gallup poll CEO is charging deception by the administration on the way employment statistics are presented to the public. What can Republicans do about getting the whole picture to the public?
Thank you, Ann.
Well,
Ann, your mic is still on, Congressman.
Yeah, well, Ann is one of our listeners that really pays attention. You know, Ann, we've talked on a number of occasions when you've called the office. Let me just frame the issue. The president's budget is massive. The president submits a budget to Congress, and the budget gets broken into 12 separate pieces. So the education piece is under the appropriation bill that takes care of that. The appropriations committee will review the bill in the House and the Senate, review the president's proposals. A lot of what the president has in there is not going to happen. And a lot of what the president doesn't want to happen will happen. I will tell you that right now. Can I tell you with absolute certainty that program that is effective will be protected? No, because I just don't have the crystal ball. But because the president proposed it in the budget does not mean automatically that will be the end result. And another example is the president zeroes out the Army Corps of Engineer projects for beach replenishment normally. We have to override that each year. What the president does with our military, what the president does in a whole host of areas. So we'll have to wait on that, but I am fairly confident that will wind up okay. I did see the Gallup survey, and it is very disingenuous the way they are rolling out these numbers. We have been talking about it for years, and your specific question of what can Republicans do about it? Well, when we continue to, and usually the members of Congress who are on committees of jurisdiction, so education and workforce, labor and ed is what the committee is called, they will be up and talking about these things. It started last week, but unless someone covers it, the only way to get the word out is to pay for, so to speak, the advertising, which Republicans, of course, can't afford to do on so many of these issues. I think you'll hear a lot more about it. I think there will be hearings on this. I know the chairman, he's from Minnesota. This came to my attention probably Thursday of last week. I'm not sure exactly how long it's been out there. I don't know. Do you know how long it's been out there?
Yeah, it's been better part of a week. Congressman, would you yield the floor to the distinguished gentleman from Egg Harbor Township for 30 seconds?
Sure.
Congressman, Assemblyman Kirk Conover and I have been covering this issue for 6 years. We have been saying this is a crooked deal from the beginning. We have lost 13 million jobs since the president took office. We have created 3 million jobs. They're not even really good jobs, but at least 3 million jobs have been created. That's a net loss of 10 million jobs. It is the lowest work participation rate in at least 30 years, if not in recorded history. Now you have Gallup organization, Jim Clifton, CEO, who they've been in business since 1935, not a tinfoil hat wearing loon that they can kook out. And he has called it, quote unquote, a big lie. And we have to get a handle on this because they're vaporizing people, taking them out of the number, and they have the audacity to take 11 and 12% unemployment, which is really where we are, down to 5.6, and now it ticked up to 5.7. This is outrageous.
It is. And a number of us have been talking about it before this Gallup report, as you indicated. Do you, for 1 minute, and you mentioned this, Harry, but I want to re-emphasize it. So to any one of our listeners, do you believe for 1 minute there are less people in the workforce today than there were 30 years ago? That's what the administration wants you to believe.
Correct.
Less people in the workforce today than 30 years ago. And they've never been able to say how they account for the frustration when somebody stops looking and they're taken as their employee. Yeah, they're not counted.
They're called a discouraged worker. They take them out of the equation. So there are numbers that the Department of Labor does release, but no, they're in tabulars, and you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Nobody looks at that. They only look at the top line number, which is what's that unemployment rate, and they're making it look like we're at nearly 100% employment, and we're not.
Well, I think we'll be hearing a lot more about it, especially now that the Senate will have an opportunity to review this as well.
And great questions. Phone lines are still open, and we'll be here until a few minutes past the top of the hour with your United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo. I'm Harry Hurley. This is WPG Talk Radio 1450. Phone lines are open at 609-407-1450. We're going to cover the Congressman's committee assignments because they are very important. We're going to tell you what all this means, Congressman will, and then we'll go to Don's email question It's a good one. It involves Congressman Brady of Texas. We'll get to that as Ask the Congressman continues exclusively on WPG Talk Radio 1450. Thanks for watching at WPG1450.com.
WPG Talk Radio 1450 presents Ask the Mayor with Atlantic City Mayor Don Guardian. Join us Wednesday evening, February 11th at 6 to talk to Mayor Don Guardian. Ask the Mayor is brought to you by the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority and Abetas Security, the experience you need for the security you deserve. Ask the Mayor with Atlantic City Mayor Don Guardian, Wednesday evening at 6 on WPG Talk Radio 1450, South Jersey's talk station.
It's a new year. How about a new you? If you're one of the millions of people suffering from hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, anxiety, depression, joint pain, headaches, or brain fog, then you won't want to miss Jersey Shore Pharmacy's upcoming seminar featuring Dr. Roberta Foss-Morgan. Dr. Foss-Morgan is an expert on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which is the natural way for lasting relief from the problems plaguing many adults. Age and stress are key reasons for loss of many important hormones, vitamins, and minerals in both men and women, which can also lead to weight gain, loss of sex drive, and loss of muscle mass. Dr. Foss-Morgan will answer your questions and discuss what you can do to reverse these conditions during this informative seminar, Saturday, February 28th at 10 a.m. at the Seaview Hotel and Golf Resort, 401 South New York Road in Galloway. Tickets are just $10, which includes breakfast. The last program sold out, so don't wait. Register now at jspharmacy.com or on Facebook at Jersey Shore Pharmacy. That's jspharmacy.com or on Facebook at Jersey Shore Pharmacy.
WPG Talk Radio 1450 presents Ask the Congressman, brought to you by Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy, compounding medication solutions from juniors to seniors to pets. It's your opportunity to talk directly to Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Call 407-1450. Now, with Congressman Frank LoBiondo, here's Harry Hurley.
Hey, thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here with you monthly with our Congressman Frank LoBiondo, and he loves to take your phone calls, your comments, and your questions, your emails, your tweets, your Facebook messaging. I have emails that have been sent to me at harryhurley.com. There are a lot of ways you can get through to this program live right now, and we're here with you monthly. We give you plenty of notice in the run-up to each and every monthly appearance by the Congressman in what has become a very relevant program here at WPG Talk Radio 1450. Kyle McCann is our executive director and executive producer and really makes us look good and sound good, and we thank him. And, of course, our market president, Michael Rubel, our executive program director, Chris Coleman, and the whole team at Town Square, Atlantic City. 609-407-1450 phone lines are open. Congressman, I was very proud to do an interview with you a couple of weeks ago on Hurley in the Morning relative to your committee assignments. They're really exceptional, and it's almost unheard of. I mean, somebody's got to get these assignments, but it's really unusual for it to be your guy. It's usually somebody else's guy or gal. Related to foreign policy and terrorism, which has been a big part of tonight's program, you've been named chairman of the House Intelligence Subcommittee on the CIA. I think it's absolutely incredible. What will your duties be? Why were you picked to lead this new subcommittee?
Well, I am very, very honored and very humbled to have this opportunity and a little bit apprehensive. And let me give it a little bit of backdrop for our listeners. The House Intelligence Committee is a direct pick. It's called the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And unlike other committees, it is a direct pick of the Speaker. The other committees, you have to be voted on the committee, et cetera, et cetera. It is the smallest committee in Congress. It is probably one of the most sought-after committees in Congress. And we have reorganized this year with a new chairman, mainly because of the threat, how increased the threat is, and how we're going to, as a nation, deal with this. So there really was not a subcommittee structure with intelligence prior to this. It was very loose. It really did not mean much. But the new chairman is from California, a very close friend, Devin Nunes. We had extensive discussions, and he decided that the 16 intelligence agencies that are tasked with protecting our country, the big ones that everybody knows of, CIA, NSA, FBI, that he would break the 16 agencies into 4 subcommittees. And he would really make the subcommittees relevant, giving us the authorization and oversight authority that sort of was left to really just the chairman and a few people in prior Congresses. Because of the importance of the CIA and because of the critical nature of the information that CIA officers provide us with the programs they run that drives almost everything else in how we protect our country, the decision was made to make CIA one separate subcommittee. There are probably a number of reasons why I was asked to do this. I think because I was essentially, for the last 4 years, the only member of Congress who's been willing to go to places like Somalia and some other places in Africa, specifically on CIA informational gathering missions. Gotten to know people in the field, gotten to know the programs extremely well, and the responsibility will be to make sure that the programs that the administration presents to Congress for the CIA, that we authorize that which will make the CIA the most effective. We, in this committee, will be able to change a lot of what the president proposes or the administration proposes if it does not match up with what we believe the people in the field desperately need and want.
Wow. Sidebar. What is it like to hold a position that basically you can never even talk about what you do? Because you've got to still get somebody's Social Security check that's not getting it, answer the calls, take care of the constituent service. This is such an awesome responsibility for our country to protect the homeland, and you literally can't even talk about it, can you? No,
and that's a good thing to point out to the listeners. I am not allowed to have any of my staff involved with me. They do not have the clearances. There is only a fraction of what we do that is unclassified. Everything else that's classified, and there are very severe penalties if you don't follow the rules. So the programs that the CIA runs, there are numerous programs. It is driven very heavily with the human side of things. NSA is pretty much the signal side of things. We have very good technology, but I don't care how good your technology is, unless you have people who are willing to put themselves in harm's way in some of the most horrible places in the world, we can't get the intelligence we need. And once we authorize the programs, we then have the responsibility to oversee them, meaning that if the administration were to change an authorization, and they don't tell us, we can hold that up, but we have to catch it. So if you get a briefing in Washington by a director or a deputy director, and it is, let's say, too politically correct with the answers that we're given, it is now becoming rather easy to sniff that out. Will you be traveling even more than in the past? Yes. And that's where this comes in. Because when a briefing comes into play, and it's pretty clear that we're not getting maybe the entire picture or all of the answers, that's when the signal comes down. Here's what we need to know. Here's where we need you to go to find that out. And you got to get on the ground to do these things. How you're very hesitant to ever talk about things from your perspective. One of the things I respect about you so much, and all the time, decades that we've known each other, you're always looking at it through the citizen, the voter, the constituent's perspective. But what does this mean to you to have achieved this? Well, I'm still absorbing it. Just being on the Intelligence Committee is an unbelievable challenge, responsibility, honor, privilege. Yeah. That I have made a promise to myself, to the people I represent, to the office I hold, that I will not waste a second. I will not spare any energy to do whatever is necessary to put the best I have to do this job, because this is protecting the country. All these things we talk about, we can talk about the other issues that come on a whole gamut of the calls that we're getting and the people are concerned about. And these are all important things, but it will pale in comparison if we are not able to protect this country. And we have to be right 100% of the time. Think about this. We can't make a single mistake when it comes to the terrorists, because we saw this in Paris. They have to be right once, and havoc is wreaked. So the awesome responsibility, the burden of trying to do this right weighs pretty heavy, but it also, Harry, you know me a long time, pretty competitive guy, is very motivating. And the bigger the challenge, the bigger the opportunity.
Do you also feel, even if it's even possible, a heightened level of responsibility because we have an executive branch right now that does not appear to be taking this as seriously as they should?
Even more so because somebody has to.
Yeah.
And I tell you, of all of my years, many years on armed services and House intelligence, I have never had a greater concern since September 11th than I do right now. We've never had a greater risk. We've never had a greater challenge. And I feel that responsibility is heightened because the executive branch of government, for whatever reason, isn't seeing what I'm saying.
I'm going to say the FBI director, Comey, knew exactly what he was saying when he said that there are basically ISIS training camps in 49 out of 50 states, the only one without an ISIS training camp right now of sorts. And that could be lone wolves. That could be actual training exercises. This is, I know, mind-blowing, but this is the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the only state in the union, Alaska, that does not have ISIS going on. Do you agree that he's speaking the truth when he says that? I believe him. I got to believe him.
This gets into very
you can't answer that,
touchy areas.
All right, will you agree with me that he said it?
He said it.
Okay. Ed did not get to finish his point. So we have Ed back. And Ed, that's on me. I apologize. I thought you were done. Ed in Northfield, the congressman, is here, and you're back on the air. You're welcome.
Yes,
by the way, did you hear me give my condolences on your loss? I hope you did.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm not just calling for myself. I'm calling for everyone out there that's lost somebody. There's people, everybody knows somebody that was killed by a drunk driver, whether it was a relative or a friend, but I'm going to make it real brief.
Yeah.
My niece had two little daughters, too, that I didn't get to finish. That now they have no mother. Yep. I don't care if Bill Elliott's in favor of that bill or Mothers Against Drunken Drivers. They don't call the shots. All I'm saying is if this governor that we have, who I like, if he signs that bill, you know what? He'll never be president of the United States, even if he has a shot for running for it. That's how I feel about it. And I only hope that he really sits down and thinks about it. And I'll say it again, Bill Elliott and Mothers Against Drunken Drivers, they don't call the shots. You got to be, it's a double-edged sword. There's hundreds of people out there that lost loved ones. That's all I have to say.
All right, Ed.
It's a shame.
Yep, Ed, I love your heart and I love your passion, man. I can't criticize you one bit. I feel the same exact way, I'm sure. This program is brought to us monthly by Mark Taylor and his great team at Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. They're at the corner of Ocean Heights and Zion Road. If you make that turn right down Ocean Heights Avenue, they'll be on the right-hand side. If you are coming from, say, Scullville EHT towards Northfield, make a right at Ocean Heights intersection, and they're directly on the right-hand side in the very corner of a beautiful little strip mall right in Scullville EHT. From juniors to seniors to pets, that's compounding excellence. That is Mark Taylor and his great team at Jersey Shore Compounding Pharmacy. Let's go to Don's question sent to both WPG1450.com, also to Harry Hurley at AOL.com. Congressman LoBiondo, your fellow member of the House, Congressman Brady of Texas and Neal of Massachusetts, introduced a bill, H.R. 5697, to end the acronym is WEP, windfall elimination provision in Social Security, and replace it with a more fair formula, also known as the Public Servant Fairness Formula. What is your position, Congressman LoBiondo, on the bill, and your opinion on the chances of it being successfully passed into law?
Well, the last part, being successfully passed into law, is, you know, I don't know how to predict that because this issue has been around for a lot of years. And just so everybody understands what this is, there are approximately 1.5 million Social Security beneficiaries that are affected by this so-called windfall provision. This includes disabled and spouse beneficiaries. So some people who are really hurting here. The legislation that has been introduced in past Congresses, which I completely support and co-sponsor, would repeal this windfall elimination provision, which reduces the earned Social Security benefits of an individual who also receives a public pension from a job not covered by Social Security. So when you put all this time in, you've paid all this money in, and then the government turns around and says, sorry. And it is not fair. It is not right. And I hope that we can get it corrected. Kevin Brady is a very solid member. He's a good guy, and we haven't been able to get the traction necessary in the past Congresses, but, hope springs eternal.
Very good chance that your fellow colleague, Ryan Zinke of Montana, my twin brother Don, is with Congressman Zinke right now.
Oh, my goodness.
They're in Whitefish, Montana.
Okay.
What are the chances? I met him last week because we did the Radio Row, which you knew all about. I think you probably put me in for it, but somebody did, and they called me. I'd never met him before. He was absolutely outstanding. Navy SEAL, real deal, Bronze Star Medal winner, Meritorious Medal winner. He's what's called Congressman at Large in Montana. And my brother had dinner with him last night. He sent his regards. I think they're listening now. And I just wanted to say hello.
Well, Ryan Zinke is the real deal.
We're talking Navy SEAL Team 6. You're talking
SEAL Team 6. Now, any Navy SEAL is beyond my comprehension. Yeah. I could not carry water for these guys. And when I heard that a Navy SEAL was running, I thought, well, this is great. And then I heard a Navy SEAL was elected, and I thought this was great. And then I am trying to spend more time with him and getting to know him. The time I have spent has been absolutely phenomenal. You want to talk about a straight shooter? You want to talk about somebody who has been there, done it, understands it, gets it? This is unreal. One of my trips to Afghanistan a number of years ago, up on the Afghan-Pakistan border, where there was a particular discrepancy with what our stated policy was and our actual policy being implemented. And I met with a SEAL team commander and came back and had a conversation, unfortunately, with a previous Secretary of Defense, Rumsfeld, and said, listen, I just got back. We have a problem. He said, well, I'm sorry, you just don't get it right. You don't understand it. There's something wrong. I said, Mr. Secretary, maybe I didn't get it right, but a SEAL team commander did. And it was just dead silence, no answer. So what Ryan Zinke brings to Congress is a level of competence and experience in things that are so important to us. We are so blessed that he was willing to continue to serve his country as a member of Congress.
He put 30 years in the military.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you what. You want to talk about a great guy to be with. You want to talk about, listen, we're dealing with some pretty serious issues, but you got to have a little bit of laugh about some of this stuff. And Zinke is one of these guys that will bring a smile to your face, just how he answers your question. The guy is great. I'm so glad that Don's having a chance to talk to him.
There he is right there, the two of them.
Okay.
They're together right now. They said hello. As you say, he's the real deal. Time for one more question. We're going to have to make it quick. William in Egg Harbor Township writes Congressman LoBiondo, Dear Congressman, what is your position in getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare? Is there a real chance of abandoning this disaster this year? Thank you for everything that you do for us in South Jersey. William.
Well, thank you, William. It is a disaster for our district, for our state, and for our country. And as I've been roundly criticized for voting to repeal it some 50 plus times, this thing has got to go. It just cannot be salvaged. And we had a vote on it last week, another repeal vote. Obviously, the president will not support the repeal. And people said, well, why are you doing this again? Well, we're doing it again because it is such a critically important issue. And we did it again because there were so many freshman members of Congress who this was part of their campaign and never had a chance to be officially on the record. Here's what to look for. While the president will not support the repeal, we will look for a huge decision from the Supreme Court on the exchanges. And thanks to the MIT economics professor who called all the rest of us dummies for not understanding the bill, he clearly said that what they said in the bill was what they intended. And I don't know how the Supreme Court they can interpret state as being, bigger than the state. Individual state could mean, a term. I don't know. But if the Supreme Court rules the exchange is unconstitutional, this thing collapses. Short of that, I think you'll see very strong bipartisan support to continue to work away at the most egregious parts of this, which are the medical device tax, the employer mandate, the 30-hour work week, and things like that are making it impossible to implement.
This is almost impossible to get. We'll try. You'll hear the music, and then we'll just, at some point, you just introduced sports betting legislation again. I saw your sit-downs with NBC Philly, with ESPN. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is, since we did this last year, we've had some really good news. So a year ago, there were three things that did not happen that have happened now. One is that the over my dead body, Harry Reid, is no longer in charge of the Senate. Still a powerful guy, but he's not calling the shots over there. Second thing is that the commissioner of the NBA, pretty powerful guy, has said that it is time for sports betting. Now, the other sports leagues have not come on board, but the biggest thing was last week when John McCain said it is time. It's not going to be fast, it's not going to be easy, but I'm more optimistic than ever. And for the NFL to suggest on Super Bowl Sunday that the $3 or $3.5 billion that was bet illegally never existed is just separated from reality.
Con, thank you for a great night.
Okay, thank you, Harry.
Really enjoyed it. And to all of our listeners and our viewers, thank you for your participation. John and Ed and Ann and Don and everybody that sent your questions in and called in. On behalf of United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo, I'm Harry Hurley. I will see you in 12 hours. Wake up early in the morning. It is good for you. The Dave Ramsey Show is next. Have a great rest of your evening. And by the way, if you missed part of tonight's program, it will replay this Sunday in its entirety in the 12 noon